Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight with Roger Johnson. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. Our top story.
The system is broken. He waited 3 hours, he was deteriorating, and we had to make that difficult decision to bring him in to save him.
The Cheshire GPs who drove a stroke patient to hospital themselves because they couldn't wait any longer for an ambulance. The doctors say they don't blame the paramedics. We will have the full dramatic story. Also tonight, the law firm that advertised no win, no fee, but its clients found themselves with legal bills of tens of thousands of pounds. Michael Owen explains his family's heartache after son James lost his sight.
It's very difficult. You want to take all the pain away. You want to swap, with him. If I could give him my eyes and we'll do a swap, then I would tomorrow, of course.
50 years of the Wirral Way, the former railway line that's become one of Britain's most popular country parks.
And Storm Jocelyn last night gave us some pretty tricky conditions this morning with some felled trees, branches and debris on the road. Things have got much quieter through today and they'll remain fairly quiet, but I'll have the details at the end of the programme.
The system is broken. That was the verdict of a Cheshire GP last night on the NHS Accident and Emergency Service. He'd been told he'd have to wait 3 hours for an ambulance to pick up an elderly man who'd collapsed in his surgery, having had a stroke. So the doctor got in his car and drove the man to hospital to save his life. A&E is under huge pressure. In the past few days, we've heard about a patient waiting 36 hours on a trolley in a corridor, while we have all been urged to only use ambulances and A&E in absolute emergencies. Here's our health correspondent, Jill Dummigan.
We've been waiting for 3 hours now for an ambulance that should have been here within 30 minutes for a lovely gentleman who is unfortunately clinically deteriorating. I'm really worried about him, and we've taken the really difficult decision to get him to the hospital ourselves.
Desperate measures. These GPs say they filmed themselves to draw attention to the problems of the NHS.
That's the situation we're in, and it really isn't the ambulance service's fault. It's not the hospital's fault. They're rammed, Every single part of the NHS is stretched yet again.
Dr. Fari Ahmed was one of the GPs taking the patient to A&E.
You could see his oxygen levels were dropping, his pulse was racing, so he was getting worse.
Were you worried about him at this stage?
I was very worried about him.
Last night we reported that Wiston and Southport hospitals had announced they were under extreme pressure at full capacity. After that, a viewer contacted us about her own experience in Southport with her husband John earlier in the month during the junior doctors' strike.
He was triaged, he was given a drip, he was given pain relief, and then we waited for a consultant.
The consultant did see John quickly. He had a scan and waited to be admitted.
He was moved onto a corridor in A&E, and that is where he stayed for his entire time that he was in Southport, which was 54 hours before he was discharged. He was well looked after by the staff, who were incredibly busy.
The North West Ambulance Service says they're seeing a spike in emergency calls.
We've certainly seen it over the last couple of weeks with COVID and with flu, but also what we've seen, unfortunately, is that our hospital systems are under enormous pressure. So when ambulance clinicians are not held in emergency departments, or indeed outside emergency departments, then we can get to patients on time.
The most recent NHS statistics show patients actually spend fewer hours waiting in corridors now than this time last year, but that was a record high. NHS England says this week demand in the region has been consistently high and asks people only to use 999 if it's a life-threatening emergency.
It's outrageous that in that moment of need, you can't access the help that you need. And it's, I don't know why or who has let it come to this.
Jill Dummigan, BBC North West Tonight.
Let's talk to Jill now. She's in the newsroom, as you can see. And Jill, all the staff working so hard, so stretched at this time of year. It's the same year in, year out, isn't it?
It is, isn't it, Roger? And I've been speaking to a couple of people today about why this is happening, and it is standard winter pressures. A lot of it's COVID, a lot of it's flu. Just the normal kind of thing, really, but of course it doesn't feel normal at all if you're stuck in the middle of it all. Now, we've had quite a lot of comments left on our Facebook page about this issue. Lorraine said, my mum, aged 86, spent 36 hours on a corridor in Blackburn A&E. There has to be some solutions. Pat said, my elderly family member with severe learning difficulties was on A&E for almost 2 days, was then discharged too soon and was readmitted the same day. Staff great, but run off their feet. Kath also got in touch, and she said, my mother waited for 68 hours in the corridors on a trolley bed before getting a bed on a ward. She's 88 and has dementia too. Now, of course, we've looked at this issue of people being stuck in corridors, unable to be admitted several times in the past, and the root cause of this is really about social care, people unable to get out of hospital to get social care, the hospitals then being full and being unable to admit people, and really until that is sorted out, this situation is very unlikely to improve greatly.
Jill, thank you very much. Jill Dummigan. Now, hundreds of clients of a stricken law firm have been hit with huge legal bills after their compensation claims collapsed, despite being assured that their cases have been taken on a no-win, no-fee basis. Many of those who've received demands, some of up to £40,000, are elderly and say they can't afford to pay. North West Tonight's learned that 1,400 people could be affected after the Sheffield-based SSB law went into administration. Our social affairs correspondent, Abby Jones, has this report.
All the wall full of the mold, and you can see down here. I just cleaned that one, but I can't get that area, so it's just mold there.
After Yusuf Patel had cavity wall insulation installed in his Blackburn home, he says he started to notice damp and mould. So when he was advised he could pursue a compensation claim on a no-win, no-fee basis, he decided to say yes. But Yusuf's case was dismissed at court, and he then received a shock demand for money from the insulation firm's insurers. How much are they saying you owe?
27,500 plus interest and more legal fees.
Can you pay that?
No chance me pay.
And how are you feeling?
I'm feeling like I'm a broken man. It's just scary to me because I never ever been in that situation in my lifetime. I never owe to anybody a penny. I can't sleep. Is my life stop at the moment?
And it was
in Lee, I meet Sean and Curra, whose parents are in the same situation.
I never thought that I'd see the day that my 77-year-old mother would have to be given the advice, don't answer the door.
Sean's mum, who lives in Burnley, has been told she owes £18,000 and the bailiffs might come knocking.
My mum is on pension credit, she has no savings. I don't know what they think the chances are of getting this money from her mother. SSB had assured her that there was no fees to pay, that the matter was closed.
In my dad's case, the debt was around 14,000. The impact this has had on him is absolutely devastating, and the impact it had not just on him, on the entire family, was that we couldn't eat, we couldn't sleep, we couldn't function. When we opened the letter, our hearts were just, palpitating.
Yusuf, Sean and Curra have emails from SSB Law telling them the firm would take out an insurance policy to protect them from paying the defendants' fees. Curra's now set up a support group after being contacted online by other worried householders.
We've had dozens and dozens of people who have joined the group, non-English speaking, so people where there were language barriers, the disabled, the elderly. A majority of the people that have been in contact with us have been from those groups.
The scale of this is incredibly large.
Solicitor Eric Kurtz is now looking at many of the cases and says more than 1,400 people could be affected.
The hotspots seem to be in the northwest, the northeast and Wales. What we've seen to date is that a lot of those added risk costs are in excess of 20 to 30 to 40,000 pounds per claim.
What can these people do?
The best advice that we can give is to obviously engage as soon as you can, try to reduce those costs, and then to seek legal advice.
Back in Blackburn, Yusuf has now discovered an interim charge has been issued on his house, meaning his creditors will receive a share of the proceeds when he sells it. In some cases, courts can order a home to be sold if the debt is not paid back.
I'm thinking I'm losing my house now. Please help us. Otherwise, we don't know what's going to happen to us.
Abby Jones with that report, our social affairs correspondent. Abby's here, as you can see. So it's really, you can't imagine the distress if you think you're on a no-win, no-fee and then you end up with a bill. The Solicitors Regulation Authority says that it's investigating SSB law.
It is, and it says also that complaints have gone into the legal ombudsman and the financial services ombudsman about the standard of service that clients have received. We'd like to put those allegations to SSB Law, to its directors, but it's not been possible to reach them, the firms in administration. But if they're watching tonight, Roger, we would like to talk to them to find out what has gone so drastically wrong. Now, the administrators FRP advisory have told us that they've sold these cases to another firm of solicitors, JMR, who will now look at these huge bills. We've also heard from the insurance companies pursuing people for costs. QBE, which is taking action against Yusuf Patel in Blackburn, told us some legal firms have been encouraging people to bring unsubstantiated insulation claims with the unrealistic promise of compensation that can have serious consequences for those involved, a fact that it is often not made clear to them. Royal & Son Alliance, which is trying to recover costs from Sean and Curra's parents, say they've paused enforcement for now and they're working to try to find a way forward. But as you say, there are now tonight lots of people worried sick, looking at these huge bills, eye-watering bills that they say they were never, ever told they could be liable for.
I know you'll continue to follow it, won't you? Abby, thank you very much. Abby Jones. Now, the family of a man who died after an altercation at traffic lights in Manchester have said today that he had warmth and love which touched the hearts of everyone he met. 30-year-old Sadiq Alami died in hospital after being attacked when the cars stopped at lights on the A34 Kingsway in Didsbury in the early hours of yesterday morning. An 18-year-old man who's been arrested on suspicion of murder is still being questioned by police. A man's been found guilty of stabbing a Skelmersdale teenager to death. 15-year-old Dylan Bragger was killed by Felipe Figueiredo on an embankment close to Digmore Road in June last year. Figueiredo claimed that he was acting in self-defence when he went to look for his wife's stolen motorbike. He will be sentenced on Friday. Electricity North West says that work is continuing to try to reconnect hundreds of customers in Cumbria following storms Jocelyn and Isha. There are still more than 500 properties without power, and the company says that it has arranged for catering companies to be set up in rural areas. Now, over the past couple of years, the amazing efforts of Oldham Rugby League star Kevin Sinfield have raised the profile of motor neuron disease. He's raised millions of pounds, of course, after his former teammate Rob Burrow was diagnosed with the condition. And MND is now the subject of a storyline in Coronation Street. So all this publicity has been welcomed by Anna Barrow. Anna's a mum of 3 from Salford. She was diagnosed with MND last year at the age of just 38. And she's been talking to BBC Radio Manchester's Anna Jameson.
I think it was March 21 time. I just had my COVID booster, and about a week after that I started to get some tingling sensations and some stiffness in my left hand. Went to the doctors and they thought it was potentially just that the injection had gone in too high. They said give it 6 months, it'll fully clear itself up. So yeah, I think it was more when it started to move into my right hand, and then I started kind of falling rather than just tripping. Went back to the doctor and said I don't think it's the injection. Tests that were done at first were for strokes and things like that. So yeah, it's not the nicest, but it's the way you're diagnosed. So
we know, don't we, that motor neuron disease, it's been in the news so much recently. Do you feel like that's helped change public perception?
I think it's really good. I think one of the things that struck me right at the beginning of my diagnosis was that people still didn't really know what that was. So then you have like terms of reference, don't you? So we can say, oh, we're like Rob Burrow, we're like the guy on Coronation Street, and it's a bit more accessible to people.
Because they've seen like Rob Burrow, Kevin Sinfield, the work that they've done, and especially Coronation Street, being from Manchester. And but then that's a different story as well, because that then goes to show that his story isn't identical to Anna's.
You've been married 17 years, you've recently renewed your vows. You're clearly made for each other.
So it was something that we'd always said we were going to do, obviously just with having the kids and stuff and wanting them to be there and be involved, and because my biggest stipulation was still being able to walk. I was like, you are not pushing me.
And you walked down the aisle.
Yeah, it's a good day, wasn't it?
It was really good.
Yeah, I just feel that, you know, my time is being at home.
It's your job now.
Yeah, that's my job. House husband. I understand now that's what we do, and yeah, we have a, like I say, we have a laugh, don't we, and just get through it,
In sickness and in health.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
It was Anna and Martin Barrow speaking to Anna Jameson. We wish them all the very best, as indeed we do to these two. As a former Liverpool footballer, England footballer as well, Michael Owen, of course, he says that he would give his own eyes to his son if he could, in order to enable the teenager to see again. 17-year-old James, who'd hoped to follow in his dad's footsteps, was diagnosed with Stargardt disease. He's lost his sight now. And Michael and James have been speaking to the BBC's Access All podcast.
I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old, and it is a deterioration disease in your eye where I think the central vision is blurry and is less than a normal person's. I struggle with seeing different colours and all stuff like that with different lights, and that's about it. I've got good peripheral vision, so that's something which will stay, but it does get worse over time, which is more of the more scary part of it from other people's point of view.
It's very difficult. You want to take all the pain away. You want to swap, you know, with him. If I could give him my eyes and we'll do a swap, then I would tomorrow, of course. But, you know, you can, again, like, you can mope all your life, and I get tired of thinking about it and you know, thinking what if and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
We just are so positive. We do all the things. You know, I've got a weekend off this weekend, and me and him will be together. You know, I wouldn't want to spend my time with anyone else, type of thing. We'll be out in town. We'll be watching racing on the television, and he won't be able to see it, but he'll be able to hear the commentary, and we'll be messing about, and we'll be listening to the football and watching that.
James and Michael Owen there. We wish them all the very best. You can listen to their full interviews on the Access All podcast. You can find that on BBC Sounds. Michael's former club Liverpool are playing tonight, of course, at Fulham, and second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final. Liverpool 2-1 up after the first leg at Anfield will face Chelsea in the final if they win next month. Now, Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola is regarded as one of, if not the best coach in the world. And the 53-year-old, who led City, of course, to the League Cup and European treble last season, is the subject of a documentary here on BBC One tonight. Guardiola's biography was written by the Spanish journalist Guillem Balaguer, and I asked him earlier why Guardiola is regarded as being so special.
I think the first thing you have to say is that whatever he's got in his hands, either teams or players, they get better. He's constantly making people think about the job and make them better. But there is something else that has taken him not just to win things, but to actually change football. He's been surrounded by people that have thought, why not? Let's go that way. Why not? Like Johan Cruyff. He looks around and sees Gaudí buildings, or he sees Picasso paintings, or he sees Juan Miró's paintings as well. And it's all different. It's all new. So he thinks deep down, why not? Let's go this way. And that takes you to new places.
Cynical people, maybe fans of other clubs, would say he's been at Barcelona, he's been at Bayern Munich, he's been at Manchester City. They are all very wealthy football clubs. They can afford to buy the best players. If you can afford to buy the best players, then anyone can succeed.
Yeah, if you are NASA, for instance, the engineers of NASA, you want them to, you give them the biggest tools you have to get to Mars, or you say, prove it to me. Go to your local garage. See if you can go to Mars that way. And what happens? They won't get to Mars because, of course, you need the best you can have, but it's what you do with the best. You don't need to look too far to see other clubs that had a lot of possibilities, the same kind of money, and it did not work.
I would describe Pep as a genius.
Tactical genius. Drives you crazy.
Football obsessed.
Just a thought on the players. In the documentary, the reverence with which they speak about him, is that unique in your experience for players to talk about a manager in that way?
There is something different about Pep Guardiola and how players talk about him. They perhaps don't relate to him personally as much as saying, he changed my way of thinking about the game.
In 2 years with Pep, I learned more than before in many years.
As a genius, definitely a special coach and one of the best in the world.
How does he compare? Obviously, we're lucky in this part of the world. We had Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United for such a long time. Back in the day, we had Bill Shankly at Liverpool. We've had some great football managers. What puts him in that same bracket as them, or is he even better?
So where Shankly and Ferguson won a lot and show the way to win, man management, signing well, keeping constantly improving and changing those that are next to them, all that was obviously unique. What Pep Guardiola is doing is something different. It's changing the culture of the game. And that, for me, is what makes him different to the rest.
Guillaume Balaguer, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Cheers.
You can see Pep Guardiola, All or Nothing, on BBC One this evening, just after our late bulletin at 20:11, or watch anytime on the BBC iPlayer. Now, 60 years ago, the railway line between Hooton and West Kirby closed down. 10 years later, it reopened, this time as England's first country park. And in the latest of her reports, celebrating 50 years of the Wirral Way, Lindsay Pross has been meeting some of the volunteers who look after it.
This train station stands still in time. Hadlow Road closed to passengers in 1956. The disused railway line, known as the Wirral Way, is a country park spanning Wirral and Cheshire West. Volunteers maintain the station and welcome school and community groups.
What we've done over the last 7-8 years, which is continue to enhance and maintain it. The council can't afford to do that. They've got a budget shortfall this year, so we're helping plug that gap by funding some of the developments and maintenance that we do.
Whilst the volunteers continue their work, cyclists are braving the weather. Organised walks and rides take place regularly.
Because people are exercising in groups, it's not boring, you're not sort of in a hot and sweaty environment, and it's just an amazing place. We're so lucky on Wirral that we've got so many amazing places that we can exercise.
In winter, rangers and volunteers cut back gorse to protect the lowland heath. This land borders the country park, and for former teaching assistant Jo Boots, it's the job she always wanted.
I wake up every morning now thinking, yes, I'm going to be outdoors in the fresh air, wake up with a smile on my face, it's exercise, it's good for your health, as well as your mental health as well.
Just down the coast, Chris Michael is picking up litter on land beside the Wirral Way. It was donated to the community by two sisters, Eveline and Ivy Cubbin, who loved this view.
Keeps me going because I have some slight disability, so I need to walk. I don't have a dog, and coming out here, because it's close to where I live, is a real plus. I mean, I don't need a garden. I've got the brilliant place to walk around.
Back at Hadlow Road, they're getting ready for another party of visitors.
We all want to help our community and make sure our people in the community benefit from the work we do.
Lindsay Prosser, BBC North West Tonight.
Beautiful, had a walk there myself. Nice day for a walk today as well. Simon's here, it's calmed down, thank goodness.
Yeah, Storm Jocelyn yesterday and through the night gave us a pretty disturbed night. It certainly woke me up with a howling wind yesterday, and it did cause a little bit of disruption. We saw some trees down, some branches, some debris on the roads first thing this morning. And these are the wind gusts that we had last night with Storm Jocelyn. 60, 70 miles an hour in Cumbria, but even towards Lancashire, those gusts of wind were about 60 to 70 miles an hour. That is Storm Jocelyn. It's long gone now, and as Roger was saying, things much quieter quieter now. We've got this ridge of high pressure making the winds lighter as the day went on. But this weather front in the southwest is going to gradually move its way northward. Now, for the first part of tonight, there will be some clear skies. Then we'll see the cloud gradually increasing with some outbreaks of rain moving its way through. It could be a little bit heavy for rush hour tomorrow morning, and temperatures overnight down to about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. So, yeah, a pretty wet start to the day on Thursday. The bulk of the rain clears initially, then we could see a few brighter skies, but it will be mostly cloudy throughout Thursday with further outbreaks of rain, some drizzle moving its way in. But it is incredibly mild, actually. Temperatures way above the average for the time of year, 12 or 13 degrees Celsius. There's that wedge of milder air. But as we go into Friday, that gets shunted away to the east. We have something a little bit chillier, but there'll still be these southwesterly winds. It's not going to be desperately cold. Now, throughout Friday, plenty of dry and sunny weather. 1 or 2 showers possible in the morning, but lots of dry weather expected into the afternoon with that sunshine. Temperatures down a little bit from Thursday, so about 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. As we go into the weekend, though, we've got this ridge of high pressure building its way in. Weather fronts just stay towards the far north and the west, so things are a little bit quieter for the weekend, but we still have this southwesterly airflow, so temperatures will creep up again over the weekend, about 10 or 11 degrees Celsius into next week. So that milder weather will come back in.
Brilliant. You know, we've talked a lot this week, haven't we, about the disruption caused by the stormy weather.
Yeah.
There was, though, an upside for some passengers who found themselves stuck at Manchester Airport yesterday. Have a listen to this.
I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not me, don't.
These Ugandan youngsters were in Terminal 1 for 12 hours after flying in en route to Belfast. The New Life Choir is on a 5-month tour here, including a performance in Lancaster in May.
Fantastic, isn't it?
That's not bad, is it, if you get stuck with that?
I know. Apparently, a lot of the passengers were absolutely delighted, and the staff as well. Simon, thank you very much indeed. That's it from us for this evening. I'm back with the late news at 10:30. Join me if you can. Simon will be here too. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Have a good evening.
Bye.